All right, so let's consider the news. And this I thought was pretty funny. There's a student that comes to these classes all the time, an ex-student, Kai, always talking about living forever. And this is a good article with this tech. This is actually, of course, a big thing in Silicon Valley, just like it has been in ancient kings of Rome and everybody else. All the people that are super rich, they want to get sold like a miracle magic stuff for the dawn of time. And so this guy, for example, is a billionaire, and he has his son. He takes blood from his son to put it in him to make him younger, and he takes his own blood and gives it to his father to try to make him younger. And it's a big deal, and a bunch of people do this, and they talk about how the evidence for this is not clear. It came from somebody who did a research where they connected two rats together, and the older rat's blood, rat's health started looking better from getting younger rat's blood, but they say it's not clear at all this will really help. But it's an interesting article in The Guardian showing these things and pretty much throwing cold water on it, which is what I always do. I mean, it's the fountain of youth. There's always been, these rich people have all this money, and so they naturally want to live forever, and so they'll find some shyster to tell them they have the latest fountain of youth. But the one thing that is not ridiculous is the Buck Center for Aging. That's around here. See if it's still around. Yeah, the Buck Institute for Research on Aging. This is around here. And this is real scientists really trying to solve this problem. There are a lot of people actually studying the telomeres and the genes and the problems with inflammation. There are people who seriously want to improve the problems caused by aging and extend human life and help cure problems, like dementia and Parkinson's and all these things that hit you with age. So that's fine. I mean, there is real research improving our lifespan, and I certainly am beneficiary. I'm what my parents' generation would have considered retirement age. And now, as Joe Biden is demonstrating, retirement age has moved out to about 80. You can pretty much, 80 is like the new 60. You can pretty much most of us can expect to be healthy and productive and working until about 80. So it does. We are improving lifespan. But we're not creating the fountain of youth, but we are, we're addressing quite a lot of the problems that come with age, and that's valuable. Let's see, I think I see some comments in Twitch. Yeah, that's what I thought you were, Kai, yeah. So, yep, the first emperor wanted to live long and took mercury, absolutely. So, all right. Yes, so it's been around forever. Anyway, so Marjorie Taylor Greene and really the whole Republican Party, but especially her, really wants to start another civil war. There was another famous Republican last week that said, if Trump doesn't win the next election, then we'll determine elections with bullets instead of ballots from then on. So, and something, I think more than half of Republicans now believe that the elections are all rigged and it's not even worth having elections anymore. So it's, we really are, at least in rhetoric, but I think in reality too with the insurgency on January 6th, we really are pushing to have another repeat of the old Civil War because we didn't really resolve it the first time. And it's exactly the same issue. It's over racial supremacy. The southern states want white supremacy, and they want all immigrants and women and black people to just stay in their place, and they feel that as a moral value. And the people in the north very strongly believe that that is not good, and it's very hard to see how we can stay united as a nation when we are divided on such a big issue. So we'll see what happens. The Biden administration is betting, and I think it probably is the best bet, that if you could just improve the economic conditions of people in the South, then they would be less crazed and not push for this nonsense so much, and you can get them hopefully over the hump, but we'll see. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is very much on the other side. She wants to...
That's the Civil War. It's to settle, don't wake up in the country.
No, the Civil War was not settled at all. Lincoln won very narrowly, and the South seceded, and Lincoln used military action to bring them back in, so they assassinated him. And after the Civil War, the Southern advocates remained angry and rebellious. They killed Lincoln and put in a second president who undid everything he'd done. So the black people only had the vote for a few years, and then the South passed laws to remove the vote from the black people and harassed them again with Jim Crow. So we didn't really resolve it at all. He did. He stopped the country from officially breaking up, but he's sort of like someone who didn't really put out a fire, he just left it smoldering. A bunch of really angry people in the South. Right, it didn't resolve it. There's just a bunch of angry people in the South that want to do it all over again. And they've risen with the current situation with Trump and stuff. So we'll see what happens. But it's very much like a fire, where you stop the edge of it, but the center is still burning, and it comes back later.
That's the whole thing about democracy. Nobody wants to solve any problem until it's every last minute.
Yes, that's a very good statement what you had, and this is why I often think we are living through a sociological experiment where the American system and the Chinese system are compared. And the Chinese system is where you control the media, you control the people, you tell everybody to stay in their place, you don't let them find out subversive things or say subversive things, and you keep them pacified. And that does seem to be working pretty well. And the American system is where you let everybody have access to all the knowledge and say anything they want and do anything they want, and then it kind of self-destructs. And we're seeing which of these will win.
In China, the communists are only 10% of the population. People just don't believe in them anyway.
Well, it would be very interesting. I would like to know more about what people really believe in China. What I've read says most people actually believe the propaganda, and they are unaware of what goes on outside the country. And
Right now is they are kind of in the security mode. So
yes,
kind of like let the communists do what they want.
yes, and right now,
People don't believe them.
I know we seem to be gearing up for a civil war, and we're also gearing up for a war with China. This is kind of like before World War I. World War I happened because every nation was just angry, and finally just a spark set it off for no very good reason. Just everybody was sort of on edge and ready to fight, and eventually something just set it off.
World War I was because the whole bunch of countries get together and form alliances. So once it starts, it's like, for our good rules.
You think the alliances caused World War I? It's not the usual explanation I've seen.
Once the war started, it blows up.
Well, once it starts, then they form alliances. Yeah, that would happen this time too. Anyway, so let me see if there are any comments in the chat. Yeah, Faulkner's English. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Faulkner and a lot of writers wrote about the Southern perspective. Anyway, in China, they have invented a new substance to replace porcelain. A new substance that is more slippery, so nothing will stick to it, and they talk about using it for toilet bowls. Seems like it would have a lot of applications. So it's interesting, a highly slippery substance. There was a previous one that was big in the 70s called Teflon, which turned out to be bad for your health. So it was in cookware, and then they took it out of the cookware, but this seems like the next extension of the same thing. And if you could have really slippery surfaces, you could have not only toilet bowls, but dishes and windows and everything that don't get dirty because the dirt just falls off. That would be nice.
Are they using graphene?
No, it's not graphene. They don't tell you what it is, but I don't think it's graphene.
I know they use graphene on the solar cell to get the dust out.
On soda?
Solar cell
Solar cells. Oh, good. Yeah.
to get the dust out.
Keep the dust out. Yes, might be. And so this, I heard about this. I didn't take it seriously. People are saying this really matters. Google, the Microsoft trial was huge. When the U.S. government tried to set up Microsoft for being a monopoly, and they failed because the Republican administration went in and they put in a guy named John Ashcroft as the Attorney General specifically to tank that case. So Microsoft was not broken up, but the trial changed Microsoft forever. Bill Gates before that had been an absolute rapacious, ruthless, immoral crusher of companies like Larry Ellison is now, and the trial scared him so much that he reformed Microsoft and they started being much less abusive. And so now they're going to take on Google. There's been a huge problem with our tech monopolies getting so big. And so they're taking on Google, apparently starting today, but the issue seems ridiculous. I mean, the obvious issue with Google is their monopoly on search, but what they're taking them on is their deal where they pay Apple to make them the default search engine on iPhones in Safari. So that's what they're being sued for, but this does seem like a relatively minor issue. Anyway, we'll see what comes of it. People say this is huge, it's going to make a huge difference in high tech, and I don't know.
And the EU already settled that, right? Settled no exclusive,
The EU has a lot of tech regulations, but and for a while, in the early years, it seemed like when the EU passed laws like privacy laws, they would just change the product to match European laws, but now they've decided to use geofencing. So Europe will see different stuff, or they'll just be blocked in Europe, and then they can keep doing the abusive stuff here. So there is need for the US government to have some tech regulation, but this doesn't seem like the right one at all. That's what commentators I read, and I think this doesn't seem like the most important one. I would think the most important one is probably regulating fake news and social media. That's the one that's actually doing us the most harm, but I think there's no way to do it in US law because of free speech. In fact, the opposite happened. The Biden administration was ordered to stop telling the social media not to put up vaccine disinformation. And I think probably the right is correct here. We've been here. If the government can control the news, then you just have Pravda and, total propaganda. So anyway, it doesn't look like the government is going to be allowed to say much of anything about the news and what content is on social media. And so this Google issue is like a trade issue, and maybe it'll result in a fine or something.
I think any regulation is bad.
What's that?
I think any regulation is bad.
Any regulation is bad?
Yeah, regulations are bad. They just
All regulations? You don't want food safety or speed limits or anything?
free market will handle.
This is the old Republican position. This is the libertarian position. This is basically the position in Texas. They say, don't need any government at all. I'll just have a shotgun and solve everything myself. That's a very popular position in Texas. Just complete anarchy. We don't need anybody to have no cops, no laws, no courts, no roads, no nothing. I'll just have a shotgun and I'll avenge the death of my son personally with an axe. And we can have that.
That's extreme. But
Yeah.
I mean, minimum like
Well, good. Well, then you might like the modern Republican Party. That's very much their principle. The original, one of the famous people said, the government should be so small that you can drown them in a bathtub. No social safety net, no regulation of drugs or food or water or anything. Everything will just be done by the market. That's a popular belief. The problem is you get monopolies and conspiracies where they conspire to sell you poisoned water and steal all your food, and then we end up with these government agencies to regulate it, and this is what the right wing calls the deep state, and they want to get rid of it all. It's part of the huge division in America. There's a bunch of people that like the government being this way, and they want to move towards Europe, like Sweden, where the government regulates things a lot more, and you have a strong social safety net, and other people want to basically have libertarian anarchy.
Create more monopolies, if you ask me, because it just restricts other companies to get into the industry.
It does. It tends to crush innovation to have that much. This is the big battle of our time. Let's see. All right. Anyway, let me stop with the news. That's